Welcome to the Art of Growth in our Enneagram panel season on the 9 love languages. This episode is the Enneagram Type 2 panel. If you are enjoying this series and are inspired to pursue more and deeper connections in your life, we've got something awesome coming up. This September starts our next group coaching series on the art of connection. In this 9-week journey, we will guide you collectively to acquire awareness and skills that will enhance connections in your life. Take this opportunity to invest in you, your relationships, and in the community you are a part of. It kicks off the beginning of September, so be sure to go to theartofgrowth.org/group coaching to sign up today before it fills up. And now, today's episode.
All right. Well, welcome to the 9 love languages, and we are with the Type 2s, and I'm so excited to have you with us. This is a work, again, of sort of exploration, discovery, as we typically do with these panels. We want to know what it is like for you, how you receive love, how you resist love, and all of that stuff. And the purpose of this is to help us understand the ways we resist the very things that give us a sense of connection. For us, this theme this year is all about that connection and the exchanges we have daily with people and how we sometimes walk away from these connections, these relationships, without that sense of having had that exchange. And so that's why we're doing this, to see what are the things that we're doing that we can also change, grow, and maybe make better connections. So before we dive in, I would like to get to know you a little bit more. If you would introduce yourself, tell us where you are from.
Hi, I'm Sky, and I am from Seattle.
I'm Nick, and I'm from Albany, New York.
And I'm Ginger, and I'm from Fort Collins, Colorado.
Wonderful. Well, welcome again. And I would be so curious, given that you're 2s, and this is sort of your space, like love, connection, right? I mean, this is something that means a lot to Type 2s.
100%.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like what comes to mind when we say, in what ways do you receive love? Or in what ways do you seek, I should say, love? Because we'll talk about receptivity later on, but what ways do you seek love? And think about your past to your present. I'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah, I'll go. I have spent most of my life seeking out love and connection. I think about it all the time. I am constantly ruminating on the health of my relationships, how my people are doing. And again, very other referencing, not thinking really about how I'm doing. It's been a lot of, I want love and connection, and how am I going to get it? And I learned a long time ago how to hotwire it. And so I would do it through vulnerability or being the very best friend you could possibly have, or the most amazing wife that you would never not be disappointed in any of my offerings. So I spent a lot of my life looking for love and connection, and then acquiring peace or maintaining my peace based upon the health of the love and connection I had.
I'm tempted to explore that a little bit, but I want to hear from the others as well. Like, is that hot wiring? That's a vivid image, and I'd like to know a little bit more about that. But yeah, Sky and Nick.
Well, yeah, I guess seeking love is something that I think I've always done. Looking back at myself, I feel like while I was growing up, it was, what I could get done in the house, what I could take off my mom's and dad's shoulders. And that's how I would get love. Or what could I do around the house? What could I do for my siblings? What could I do for my family? It was all about me giving and giving and giving. I was definitely, I would say I was a yes man for sure. Until, I started my own growth journey when I started realizing that I can seek it in the ways that I want to seek it and not in the ways that I think everybody else wants to hear it.
Yeah. As a younger child and as a teenager, I was all about helping others in order to, I don't think it was to receive love. I've said this to Joel before. I never felt a lack of love and based it upon my service, but there was always something burning inside me about making sure I did for others, regardless. And as I got into my teen years, I really sacrificed a lot of my own self in the pursuit of helping others, to the point of having to drop out of high school for a year. And I had taken upon myself the problems of so many of my friends and their families and such that I needed to take a break. 30 years later, I'm stronger for it, but in the moment it was very traumatizing. Yeah.
So this is interesting. I'd love to hear in this various different ways each of you have said it. So hot wiring to serving to being available and carrying everybody else's stuff, and then ending up, not being able to continue on in school. What about that habit or behavior speaks to, if I do this, I then will get love? Like, how does that work in your minds?
I think it worked really well until it really stopped working. And so it worked like hijacking a car. Like, I knew how to gain people's trust quickly by being a trustworthy person. I knew how to acquire emotional intimacy if the other person had capacity, if I started with vulnerability. And so it was like, I knew how to do it. And the work that I've done has made me realize that wasn't the purest offering, that there was some subtle manipulation in that I didn't even know I was doing, but it was my way of hopefully ensuring that I was going to receive deep love and deep connection. And you know what? The formula didn't really pan out in my life. I would say I've had a tremendous amount of rejection, betrayal. I went through a divorce that I did not want in my younger years. I have had friends betray me. Turns out my kids empty nested and went on and lived their lives, and they're launching and not thinking a whole lot about their mom, which is wonderful. That's what I wanted. You want to give your kids secure attachment, but then you're left with, wow, what is this really about? And so it worked for so long until it stopped working. And then I felt like I fell off a cliff and landed with my heart, in the Grand Canyon. And I then shifted into, what about you? Who are you? What do you want? And I started befriending myself and shifted it from being entirely other-oriented to much more self-referencing. And that has been an incredibly important, healthy shift for me, and most likely all of my relationships, I think.
Yeah, the transition, after I experienced that in high school, went back and finished. And I would say as I went off to college, I flipped a switch where I wasn't going to care about anybody for a while. It was hard for me, very hard, but it was a conscious, I'm not getting involved. Sorry that you're having a hard time, go talk to somebody else. It went on for a few years. My wife will tell you, when she first met me in college, I was pretty detached for being a two. I was, but it was protection. I was making sure I didn't mess up again.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, you said something earlier I don't want to miss. You mentioned this idea that there wasn't a lack of love that was creating the pursuit of these reciprocal connections. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, because that just stood out to me as, well, then why? What were you doing?
I came from, a very loving family. I mean, at home, I was nurtured. I might have even been nurtured too much, cared for, never worried about that. School was a different story. So now that you're asking this question, my earliest memories of school, I was not accepted. I was not treated well. I was not loved, I guess. So maybe it's there. It's funny that maybe it wasn't home, but it was my peers that sort of were a cause for me to find whatever way I could to attach myself to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense that, when we're kids, our parents care for us is like what we look for the most. But as we get to that age, we're tending to look for the connection with peers. So maybe it was just a stage of life thing, and it was like, how do I get it here?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a predisposition. We've been saying that all types have. I mean, you're born with that predisposition is our belief. And then it's just a matter of time. It's like what Carl Jung said. It's that first wounding that wakes you up to like, uh-oh. It's like first moment of I'm missing something or I need something, right? It's like that moment of awakening. And for you, it happened, it seems like in school.
Sure.
You know, you didn't have that need or that awakening because you had it. You were surrounded by it at home.
Yeah.
I think I really resonate with the thought I am unwanted. And Nick, as I kind of hear your story and I think about maybe where some of the origins of my two-ness come from, I know it's some nature nurture, but I think I have been trying to live out a different story than the one I believed as a child, which was I'm unwanted.
Yeah.
So then what am I going to do rather than being a victim? I'm going to empower myself to be all things to all people. So I never, ever, ever have to feel the way I felt inside of my large family of honestly a relative amount of emotional neglect. And so I've lived my life trying to avoid that feeling.
We're diving into the origins of the two, being a two and where it came from after we told you kind of like what fit us and like what affected us while we were growing up. And it got me thinking that I'm the oldest of 6 kids. Well, there's 8 of us now, but 6 of us grew up together. And I think as the oldest brother, as I got older, I needed less and less attention from my parents when really I craved more attention from my parents. So it's a very strong possibility that I could have seen doing those chores or doing those things around the house, being the yes man, as making somebody happy, which makes somebody love me more. And I think that that's where that history might have come from, actually just thinking about it in this very moment right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that through line. It's like, I make you happy, you like me, and therefore I have a sense of reciprocal connection.
We fall from that, in the origins of some of the ways that the Enneagram teachers have taught this is that, we fall from that place of utter and total complete connection. There's like a falling away, and we don't know when it happens, but that's the experience that we feel. And that sense, our ego has to fight for us. It has to say that can't ever happen again, because that wounding in 9 different ways is so painful to our psyche that our psyche determines that this is the only way I'm going to be able to get love. And we, again, it's not that the type 2s are the only ones that go after love. Every type is seeking love, but it's doing so in different ways. And so, yeah, I heard that pretty strongly in you, Ginger, like the determination that can never happen again. So I have to take it on myself and make that happen.
Yes. And the irony is we are going to experience rejection. Not everybody is going to like us.
Right.
And
Ooh, don't say that. That hurts too much.
Right? It is such
Do you want everyone to like you?
Yes.
Yes, I do. Yes,
everyone.
I do, Jim. Yes,
Wow.
I sure do.
Yeah. That's the way you're going to get that thing that you believe that you're going to get. And I thought where you were going to go with this, Ginger, was also, and I'm imagining this is going to feel the same for you, Sky and Nick, is like at some point that has diminishing returns. You keep pushing for love and you keep pushing, you serve and you do. And like you said, I mean, that imagery, Ginger, of like broken on the floor with your heart, like after doing all of this, and that's what you're left with. It's, it's the experience of having done everything our type knows how to do to get us what we need. And it doesn't quite work. Yeah. It works enough that, like you said, it can last for a while. You can go for a while on that. And then eventually it stops. So, all right, let's take a look at then in what ways do you resist love? So this is the way you seek it out. You seek it out. You do what you can to make sure that you don't have that pain of not having love. I believe that that's actually the better framing of it, as opposed to I did this and to get love. It's like we don't actually quite get there. So it's more of like I'm avoiding the actual pain of not feeling wanted by doing everything I can to hopefully not feel that again. And so the resistance to love, how does that show up for you as a 2?
We've been talking about the downfalls of the types in class, and for the 2, the downfall is pride, right? So like we try to be helpful. So when someone tries to ask us if they can help us do something, I feel like I'm pretty prideful. I'm like, no, it's okay. I've got it. It's all on me. I've got it. No problem. Don't help me. And for me, that's the same with love, is when someone tries to show me, hey, I want to love you and I want to help you and I want to do things for you too. I'm just like, nope, you're not allowed to, because then I'm unloved, because then, I'm not being helpful and useful.
Yeah. As you were speaking, I thought I'm almost suspicious when someone offers to help me with something. And I don't know what that says about me, but I'm, what's their agenda, and are they trying to take this task away from me so that they can be recognized for helping someone? I don't know. And part of that comes from having worked for some pretty awful people. So, so I'm suspicious. I'm suspicious when people, even to come alongside me in a task. It's not that I think I know it all, because I know I don't. But what I do know is, if I take care of it, then I don't have to worry about anything else.
I think resisting love, and I would change that language to something a little more softer, like a reluctancy to engage my heart. I don't know that I would ever resist receiving love. I feel like I'm just this golden retriever that just is roaming around the world waiting for someone to love me. But with a service dog thing on my back, not only will I be a golden retriever, I'll be just the most amazing service dog. And though I've gotten rid of that pack and now I'm just a golden retriever. But resisting for me is I'm so much more cautious now to try and discern accurately what is someone's capability, what is someone's capacity. And this is really about, for me, relational love and friendships or new friendships or a coworker that just came on a team. And I'm almost hyper vigilant now about protecting my heart and trying to discern, will they offer reciprocity?
Yeah.
And I will undoubtedly misinterpret that.
Oh, good. Me too.
And just assume it, especially if the other person is incredible, well-respected, just someone that honestly, I'm like, I would really like to be friends with her.
Yeah.
I will assume, nope, she doesn't have time for someone like me. And so I'm sabotaging the connection that I want because I'm guarding my heart a little too much.
Yeah. Well, that's what we mean by resistance. It's not, that you don't want love. Of course you want love. It's like, again, every type of belief wants love. It's the resistance is in what it requires of me to get that love, to receive that love. Like it requires something that I'm not sure I can do. For example, I got to believe that this love is actually coming towards me. I got to see it, to recognize it, right? So we'll talk about that under receptivity. But yeah, there's a resistance by our types, like not this way, this way. That's how I want it to be done. And so that's the thing that sometimes, whether it's resistance or a filter that doesn't, see it or pick it up or something else. But you can feel, I don't know if you can, I'd love to hear from you if it's true, because I can feel it inside me when someone's trying to love me in a way that makes me feel a little vulnerable, and I can find myself shutting down. So curious as to what your experience is around that. How do you resist it when you see it? What's happening internally for you? And you mentioned the helping, like, you've talked to me about that before, where your wife comes along and says, hey, can I help you with something? And there's like a kind of like a no, and it can be sometimes a stronger no, particularly probably earlier on in your relationship.
Yeah. I mean, she would definitely, she always came in and like would offer help, hey, can I help you do the dishes? No, I got it. No, it's fine. And she started doing this thing to me after I started going through my growth journey and started going to therapy. She was like, listen, I need you to think about, what would you say to me if I were in your position and you were asking me to help. Would you want me to reject you like that? And that made something snap inside. I was like, no, I wouldn't want to be rejected. And so I'm like, all right, you can help me. Here's what I need help with. And then, of course, there's a list of things that I need help with. And I've just overwhelmed myself because that's what I've taken onto my shoulders by myself.
I'm hearing in my own head a number of times I've said to my wife, I don't need your help. And just in the last couple of weeks, in a negative way, but I'm okay. I've got this. I want her to love me. It's interesting. So here's the dichotomy, right? So I want her to love me. Absolutely. But I don't necessarily want her to help me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's got to be a frustration for people who are in relationships with twos or have twos in their lives, for, people who don't know that they're twos, that, I just want to help them. I just want to do something for them and they won't let me do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've experienced and seen with other people talk through this a little bit about this point of confusion where at one point I see that you're seeking reciprocity, right? The exchange of the care, the relationship, but then the two sometimes in the struggle to receive. So there's like the seeking the reciprocity and then the struggle to receive. And just wondering, like, how does that show up for you? Sky's immediately like, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think about it because I think about, all these times that I was asked, oh, can I help you? And of course I want love from that person. But to me, if they have to get up, if they have to do something that I can't do for them, it feels like it's a burden. And so then it's not cool for me. And I think that's where that border lies, is we want the love from you. We just want the praise. We just want you to thank me for it. But if you're going to offer to help me, I don't want it.
Yeah.
But I want you to love me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If that makes sense to you guys.
Does to me.
But I think for so many people, the way they want to demonstrate love in return is through action.
Absolutely. And that's why it's frustrating to, be with somebody who doesn't want your help, or who thinks they don't want your help,
Right.
but they really do.
I've heard from other twos say, I don't want to ever be needy. And so that is a point of resistance. If I'm needy, what then? Right? There's like, you can finish that ... What if I'm needy? Then what?
Then they're not going to love me.
They're not going to love me. Right. When the very act of having a need is the opportunity to receive love. Right.
Right.
And you know that better than any of the other 9 types. So yes, it's physician heal thyself, but it's like none of us can, because we're all doing similar things through our different ways. So neediness is one point I'd love to hear from Nick and Ginger as well.
I think being needy feels really vulnerable. And I used to avoid it at all costs. But then I realized how connected I feel to people when I get to show up for them. And I was really longing for deeper connections, actually. And so I started interrupting my pattern and allowing people to show up for me. And also I had enough life circumstances where I was desperate, actually. I needed people, whether it was when one of my sons was just incredibly colicky and he didn't sleep for a lot of weeks. And my husband was busy working a pretty intense job and getting his master's. And so I didn't know what I was doing as a new mom. And I needed help. I was drowning. And so that is one example of me being forced into, you have got to receive help. And ironically, that friend who showed up for me 23 years ago, we are still tight because she showed up for me in crisis and I allowed her to see me in my most vulnerable, messy state where she could have been like, you are too much.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she pressed in. And it was so good for my heart.
Yeah. You just named a message that so many twos are afraid to hear. It's that my needs are too much. I'm too much for you. My needs are too much. I can't ask.
In 2013, just prior to my ordination date, I came down with anxiety. I had never had it before. At least I didn't know I did. And it was 2 weeks prior to my ordination exam and lots of stressful things coming up. And we had just moved. And I was literally bedridden, couldn't leave the house, couldn't drive, couldn't do the things that I did on a daily basis. And that was a moment where I had to raise my hand and say, I need help. And didn't enjoy it. I literally had parishioners who drove me to class because I couldn't drive, who came around myself and my family. It was just a 3-week period, but it was a paralyzing period for someone who was supposed to be in charge of the church and in a leadership role. That was just a moment for me that was my moment. And since then can tell that story of, sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yeah. It's almost always how it happens for all of us. I wish I could say it was a good idea. I thought of a good idea. Like, I should probably grow and change. It's never that way. It's always that something collapses. Another point is that, see if you resonate with this too, is that for, I think you said something similar, Nick, is, when you're a two, one of the things that twos love to do is be someone's hero. That's sort of the hero archetype that we find in all humans, but that's how it shows up in the two. It shows up in each type differently. And so that's an opportunity that's being taken from you when you can't be the one helping, someone else is helping you, or helping somebody else that you wish you were helping or connecting with, even if it's not help for you as a two. It's that idea of like, I could be there for them, and I'm not able to be there for them. So that's a point of resistance too. It's like, well, if I don't, and I don't do this, then what's my value? And will I still have value as a person? Yeah.
That point used to send me kind of spiraling a little bit. Like when I realized I couldn't be helpful or I messed something up that somebody asked me to do, it would send me into this spiral of negativity that was really hard to break myself from for a long time.
Sure.
Before, therapy and all that. And yeah, it's not something that I think I would wish on anybody else, because the feelings inside when you feel like you let someone down it just feels like the end of the world.
Mm-hmm. So both Nick and Ginger, you both mentioned a story where you were in a really hard place and someone showed up for you, where you were almost put in a position where you were forced to receive, but it was like proven reciprocity. And so how did that impact you as far as the long-term experience relationally with the people who had that proven reciprocity?
I would say certainly that one friend, we are friends to this day, but also it taught me a different choice. And so I started opening myself up to receiving from other people. And maybe when I'm not in crisis, maybe when they just want to show up for my heart or do something nice. And I just started being available for that because, again, I'm always thinking about love and connection. And so it's just so beautiful to have that pure offering of, wow, somebody just wants to do something for me without me having to be the most amazing version of myself or be whatever they would want me to be. I just get to be me. And I'm learning to be more honest and vulnerable and messy. And I'm actually learning to not show up for people 100%. Sometimes I need to look at my own life or my schedule or my capacity. And I'm learning to say, I'm so sorry, I cannot make that happen for you tomorrow without giving a reason why, and I'm realizing that is acceptable in the world of relationships. And people will not necessarily abandon me.
Yeah.
And most people won't. Actually, most people won't abandon us. Most people want to show up for us and befriend us.
Yeah.
I ended up staying at that church for 6 years after that. Initially very timid and sort of terrified that folks would use the fact they had to help me against me.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen it happen to other people. But I have to say that didn't happen. They took good care of me, and it changed my perspective, not only as a human being, but as a pastor. And now I teach other pastors, it's okay for the congregation to care for you when you need to be cared for, because you're a human being just like everybody else. And so for me, it was a positive experience all the way through. And now at my third appointment, my third church, I have a very different perspective about my own transparency and my own willingness to say, hey, I can't, just like Ginger, can't do that tomorrow. Or no, I won't do that. And, and I feel less responsible for explaining myself, for sure.
Sounds like you're showing up for yourself. Sounds like there's a bit of that happening. Like, if I wait for people to show up for me, if I wait for that always to be, the thing that tries to meet my need, then you're still, as you mentioned, Ginger, other referencing, right? You're still waiting for that to come. And by saying, no, I can't do that. That's just sort of like, I'm taking care of my own needs. I'm taking care of myself in this moment. So.
Yeah, actually they're talking, and, it's nice to hear their journeys from where they were to where they are now. And kind of, something very similar happened to me. I had went through a pretty hard time in 2019, which drove me to like a really dark place. And I didn't want anybody to help me. But eventually my wife had to come to me, and she was like, look, I need you to go talk to somebody, because I have gone to my borders of what I know how to help you with. You need to seek external help. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I decided, okay, I'm going to go to therapy, and I'm going to allow this person to help me. And it was the best choice I ever made, because from my first therapy appointment, my life changed. I learned how to say no. I learned how to build healthy boundaries and not be the yes man all the time. And it's changed my life. And I feel like I've been so much more of a stress-free person since that happened. And I'm so thankful for that one pivotal moment.
Love coming from other types is different sometimes than the way we want that love to come our way. Your own relationship with types that are different than your own. How does that work for you? And both the perceiving, seeing it, oh, that's love coming my way. That's interesting. And then taking it in and actually experiencing it, feeling it on the inside. How's that been for you? What's that experience like? Are you capable? Are you seeing it, and are you able to take it in?
When I first learned about the Enneagram during my growth period, I shared it with my best friends and my wife, and we all took the test. We all figured out what we were, and we figured out the best way to communicate with each other, how our love types interact. We looked at the interactions between the types so we could all memorize it and bring it in. And they learned how they needed to give me love through that learning lesson. And I learned how to receive through that learning lesson, where they love me and they want to help me, and I will allow that into me, and it's okay. And that's the really hard part to get past, is that it's okay to accept the help.
I think being loved is the actual best. It is so life-giving, especially when it's a pure offering, especially when I didn't overshoot, show up, honestly, like manipulate love in a way. It's so subtle, but not so subtle. It might not be as subtle as I think it is. And so when people just love me for my inherent likability, imagine that. Imagine that I might even have inherent likability, first of all, because I've been believing a lie. I'm unwanted. So I then first have to make the shift to actually, you're quite likable and you love really well, Ginger, and you show up for people. That's the irony. That's the irony of all of us on this panel, is that we're actually really good people that show up for other people, but we just don't believe it. So I think receiving love when it's such a pure offering, I didn't hijack it.
Yeah.
Oh, I literally go to bed with the biggest smile on my face. Like, that was the best day ever.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. Allowing love in brings more joy than I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, joy. I was thinking of the word freedom when I really allow it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
When I really accept it, when I really stop overthinking it, I feel the most free, free to be who I am and free to do things that I don't normally feel free to do, when I'm not.
Yeah, that goes back to that, when you're as a two available, you're also adapting. You're also doing what other people need you to do. And so that can feel constraining and constricting after a while, I bet. And so the ability to not have to do that, to be able to receive love just simply because you're likable.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, freedom. Yeah.
I like that. I like freedom. That's a great description for how you feel when you can set those healthy boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember grabbing a two that was a good friend of mine and saying, I like you. I like you just because of who you are. And they were so uncomfortable. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was great. It took a while, but one day she came over to our house. We had an event, and she's the type of two. Not all twos do this. Okay, so stereotypers out there, please stop. Not all twos bring cookies to every party. But she was the type of two that would. And she showed up and she said, "Did you notice I didn't bring anything?" Yeah. And did you notice that people enjoyed you for who you are just because you're here? Yeah, I can't believe it. So it was just a beautiful moment of recognition. Like, you can do that, but it's the practice of doing that. For other types, it may seem obvious or easy. And why can't you do that? Well, reflect on your own type. We all have a point at which we resist love. And it seems obvious to other people. Why can't you? It would be so much better. And so we extend grace to each other because it is difficult. We have to go across a massive, what feels like a chasm. It's treacherous to do that. It's life-threatening, it feels like, to go across that, to do something we've never done before in order to take in the love that is coming our way. So to each of you, just nothing but utter gratitude for having shared vulnerably, openly, your own journey, your own experience with love. And my hope is that this helps many others in relationship with twos, but also many other twos out there to continue to take those risks to receive love so that you too can feel deeply connected.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope this work of art helps you grow. Reach out to us at www.theartofgrowth.org to find out about the upcoming group coaching session, to take our free Enneagram or Instincts test, learn about individual and couples coaching, as well as our next round of certification. If you would like to see how our work can improve your corporate culture and team dynamics, email us to set up a free consultation. You can follow us on Instagram at just Art of Growth, and make sure you follow the podcast. And leaving us a review on iTunes really helps people find this work. Until next time, my friends, grace and growth.